This is The Daily Divide. Emergency housing grants have plunged as the government tightens rules, with more applications now being declined than approved in Auckland. Since August last year, officials can reject applicants deemed to have caused or contributed to their own need. Nearly 1,000 have been turned away under that rule alone. Youth advocates say that the changes leave vulnerable people, especially young women, sleeping rough or in dangerous situations. They call the government's approach irresponsible and warn lives are at risk. Associate Housing Minister Tama Potaka defends the clampdown, saying motels were never meant as long-term homes, and personal responsibility must come first. He points to over 1,000 families moved from motels into stable housing under National's new policy. But critics, including health experts, say the system is now a barrier for people in crisis, putting thousands at risk of harm while homelessness continues to grow. Leaked health data show major hospitals are missing the government's emergency department target, with only around 70% of patients seen within 6 hours, far short of the 95% goal set for 2030. Some of the country's busiest hospitals, including Auckland, Wellington and Dunedin, dipped below 40% on their worst days. Labour's Alicia Verrill says the figures expose underinvestment and broken promises, while Acting Health Minister Mac Dosey insists official quarterly data shows improvement, but admits waits are still far too long. At the same time, questions are mounting over the government's growing use of private hospitals for elective surgeries, with critics warning it's more costly, siphons staff from the public system and worsens inequities. Researchers argue public care is more efficient and delivers better outcomes, while private providers cherry-pick easier cases. The government says long-term private contracts will help cut wait lists, but experts warn it risks undermining public health. The government has carved out a major new exemption to New Zealand's foreign buyers ban. Wealthy overseas investors who secure an Active Investor Plus or so-called Golden Visa will now be able to buy or build one luxury home worth at least $5 million. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon calls it a happy compromise, saying it will attract investment and jobs without driving up the property market, since fewer than 1% of homes qualify. Winston Peters insists that the foreign buyers ban remains in place, with farmland and sensitive land still off limits. But Labour and the Greens accuse the government of rolling out the red carpet for the mega rich, warning that the policy will push house prices higher and lock more New Zealanders out of home ownership. A new Ipsos poll shows the cost of living remains voters' top concern, and Labour is pulling ahead of National on who can best manage it. 60% of New Zealanders cite it as their number one issue, with Labour now trusted by a third of voters, while National has slumped to 26%. Labour still leads on the broader economy, but its advantage has narrowed to just a few points. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon blames Labour for rising costs, but insists recovery is on the way, pointing to stronger rural industries. Businesses, however, are less convinced, with Kiwi Bank finding only a third of firms are taking up the government's flagship investment boost tax break. Many say tight cash flows and weak trading are holding them back, with the scheme more of a cherry on top than a real driver of new investment. Meanwhile, primary teachers and principals may head towards industrial action after 2 weeks of stop-work meetings. Their union says members are frustrated with offers of just 1% annual pay rises and wants a deal that better values their work. Ballots on strike are now on the table, and the battle over conservation land is heating up. Outdoor recreation groups warn government plans to give the conservation minister sole authority over public land decisions will sideline iwi, local voices and the public, opening the door to more commercial use. The shock resignation of Reserve Bank Governor Adrian Orr in March has spiraled into a major political storm. Official documents later revealed that his exit wasn't for personal reasons, as first claimed, but stemmed from a bitter dispute with the board over funding and a breakdown in trust. Orr and board chair Neil Quingley even hired lawyers to negotiate his departure. With Orr gone, the bank requested a much smaller funding package, which Finance Minister Nicola Willis approved. But the fallout grew, with Quingley himself resigning last month, amid mounting pressure over both his handling of Orr's departure and questions about conflicts of interest. The saga has fueled debate about the Reserve Bank's independence, especially after comments from Prime Minister Christopher Luxon and the Cabinet Minister Shane Jones about where interest rates should sit. Critics warn that the political pressure risks undermining the bank's credibility at a time where the government is under fire over the cost of living crisis. Regional Development Minister Shane Jones is doubling down on his criticism of the Environmental Protection Authority, despite its chair warning his attacks are denting staff morale and eroding confidence in the fast-track consenting process. Jones says he expects big things from the board and will be meeting his chair, Barry O'Neill, to demand results. At the same time, Jones is facing pressure from another front: oyster farmers north of Auckland. They've been crippled by years of sewage overflows contaminating Mahurangi Harbour, with some losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Farmers say Watercare has polluted at will while dragging its heels on upgrades. Jones has promised to confront the agency directly, calling their conduct unacceptable and vowing to back the struggling growers. Watercare says a $450 million wastewater program will almost eliminate overflows by late next year, and it already provided grants to help farmers recover. But growers say they can't survive another lost season without urgent action.